Well, Dolphins fans, that was an absolute disaster. And what am I referring to? Well, I'm referring to the joint practice between Miami and Detroit that took place in the Lions facility today. It could not have gone worse. It really couldn't have. And we start with the injury front. And we'll get a little bit more positive as the show goes on. But I originally thought I was going to have to cancel the season, because Isaiah Smalls, who covers the Dolphins for the Miami Herald, who's on the ground in Detroit, said that Chop Robinson went down. And the reports are that he went to go for a loose ball after Jordan Brooks forced a fumble of David Montgomery. But then Chop Robinson stayed down. Jaelan Phillips, who did not practice today, by the way, and defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver went to go check on him. And then Isaiah said, he's still down. And then this is where the heart attack happened for me. He said that Chop Robinson got loaded into the cart. His head is down. Not a good look. And when I envision someone riding off in a cart from practice with their head down, for whatever reason, I imagine a towel over their head. And if the towel's over the head, well, they might as well be done for the year. So when I see his head's down, I'm literally freaking out. I'm crashing out on Twitter, which is why you need to follow me, by the way. I had you updated over there first before we made this video. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, could the Dolphins be any more cursed? But I think we are dodging a bullet here, and I'll explain why in a second. But when we get the official Chop Robinson injury update, we will have you covered with a video. So subscribe today and join us here at Dolphins Today for daily coverage on the Miami Dolphins. Well, the reason why I feel a little bit more optimistic and I say the Dolphins maybe dodged a bullet here is that about 3 hours after the alleged injury and before we were about to film this video, Chop Robinson posted on his IG story, "I'm good, y'all. Nothing serious." He also replied to Adam Schefter's breaking news Instagram post about Chop leaving on a cart and says, "I'm good, not anything crazy." So for him to say that multiple times tells me that we avoided disaster. It's a good sign early here. Now, it is still unclear where the injury is on his body. I don't know if it's lower body. I don't know if it's upper body. I have no clue as of filming this video. All I know is that Chop Robinson says it's not a serious injury, which is as good as news as you can possibly imagine based off the early indications. This is arguably the most exciting part of the Miami Dolphins this year. There is no guarantee this football team makes the playoffs. There is no guarantee they are a good football team in general. But one thing that is going to make watching this team play every single weekend enjoyable is the development of your second-year edge rusher, who was one of the best rookies and just flat-out pass rushers in all of football a year ago. You see his rookie stats on screen, but from week 8 to week 18, so the final 9-10 games for Miami, because they had an early bye, he was 7th in overall pass rush grade, 4th in pressures, 4th in QB hurries, 3rd in pass rush win percentage, and 3rd in signature stat from PFF, PRP, which is how they basically grade out pass rushers. So what are we saying here? We're talking about a top 5 pass rusher in the second half of last season, and he was just a rookie. So you have to imagine he was going to be in line for a big year too. And I think Miami views that in the same light. We know Chop and Bradley Chubb are your projected edge starters on this defensive line. Jaelan Phillips is listed as an outside linebacker. Either way, Chop Robinson was the person I am most excited to watch this year. And if he was out for the season, not only would it be a massive blow to Dolphins fans' enjoyments of every single game this year, it would also be a massive blow to the Dolphins defense, who needs the pass rush to be absolutely elite because it needs to masquerade how poor the secondary is. And we'll talk about the secondary in just one second. But before we know the severity of the Chop Robinson injury, I want to get the good juju out there for our guy Chop. So spam those 44s down in the comments section. I better see a bunch of 44s to make sure our guy is healthy. We're now going to talk about the other reason why that this practice was absolutely terrible for Miami and why this was one of the worst joint practices I think I might have ever seen. Now, a couple tweets will be shown here. And I want to make it clear, these are from Lions beat reporters that were on the ground, so it's not coming from Miami's perspective. Miami beat reporters are going to be a little bit biased. The Dolphins beat reporters are going to be a little bit biased. Well, we'll start with Colton Pouncey, who said that was one of the most lopsided joint practices I have ever seen. Lions dominated, both sides. Nick Baumgardner, I don't know. Lions just out everything the Dolphins for 2 hours out here, as lopsided as a joint NFL practice as I've ever seen. And then we got Mike Payton. Either the Dolphins were really bad or the Lions are just a juggernaut. Not a great day for Miami. I know it's coming from Lions perspectives, but it's not ideal when a group of beat reporters can just flat out say that they were the better football team and it was not close. It is as bad. Like, seriously, if you could script in your head the worst joint practice for the Miami Dolphins that you could think of, and then it happened, it would probably be worse than what actually happened earlier today. And I'll showcase some takeaways in a second. I do want to make this said, though, as much as Miami struggled, there was no Jaelan Phillips today. There was no Tyreek Hill. Jaylen Waddle participated in some red zone work, but it's not like he was participating in the practice fully. So they were missing 3 of their key players, but it is an indication that, well, Miami's probably not even in the same weight class as Detroit when it comes to them as a football team. But let's look at some of the top takeaways that I have from this joint practice. Number 1, the passing game was absolutely horrific today. And this is very consistent with what we saw in the joint practice between Miami and Chicago last week. The Dolphins are just struggling to really get plays going through the air. And it's partially because of the offensive line. It's partially because the wide receiver ones that Miami are playing are Malik Washington and Nic Achane and D. Eskridge. And I like those 3 guys, but I like those guys as wide receivers 3, 4, and 5, not 1, 2, and 3. When you don't have Jaylen Waddle or Tyreek Hill, which is how you build this football team, it's going to be a little bit of a disaster. But opposite of what we saw from the first team O-line in the preseason week 1 game against the Bears, it sounded like the offensive line really struggled to protect Tua. It felt like Tua was getting pressured almost every single snap, and he really didn't have enough time to read the defense, and it sounded like the Lions got a bunch of sacks. Now, the Lions are a really good team and have a really good defense, but to be as lopsided as it felt like in this practice, where I'm just reading reports from Lions beat reporters and Dolphins beat reporters, it's obviously not ideal. More takeaways to come here in a second, but shout out to Mando for sponsoring today's show, the whole body deodorant that I trust to make sure I am not stinky like the Dolphins were earlier today. And I'm traveling nonstop. It's hard to pack, overpack, underpack, forget essentials. It's a disaster. That's why I started packing smarter with Mando. The Mando 4-in-1 acidified cleansing bar is huge. Shampoo, face wash, body wash, and deodorant all in one bar. Mando Sweat Control Deodorant Stick is also huge because it stops odor before it starts. Mando holds up even in the heat, even on the move. And the Mando Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. And one of my favorite items that they have is the deodorant wipes. I talk about them consistently. Why? I'm always traveling, whether I'm going to visit my girlfriend, whether I'm visiting my family, whether I'm just going to run some errands or play some golf. If I feel like I need to freshen up, the deodorant wipes are there perfectly to help me, and I take them everywhere I go. And as a special offer for listeners, new customers get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive code CHAT. Use code CHAT at shopmando.com for 20% off site-wide plus free shipping. shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Mando's got you covered. Protect your pits. Smell great doing it. Links in the description and comments of today's video. Takeaway numero dos. Our secondary got torched. And this is the exact fear that I have had for the past 3 months when Miami did not draft a corner high and really didn't make any signing in the secondary either, and then ultimately traded Jalen Ramsey. The truth is, Amon-Ra St. had his way with everyone. If you looked at every single player on the roster for both teams and put them in a ranking order of who is the best player on the field and who is the worst player on the field, Amon-Ra St. would have been the best player on the football field. He gave Mike Hilton the business. He gave Jack Jones the business. He gave Storm Duck the business. Now, we are talking about a top 5, top 7 wide receiver in the National Football League, and he's one of the most productive, so it doesn't surprise me, but it just further illustrates how poor this Dolphins secondary is constructed at the cornerback level. And I tweeted this out earlier today as well when I was getting some reports flying in from the joint practice. Dolphins secondary getting torched by the Lions offense. Hope Chris Greer is happy. The Dolphins still have $11 million in cap space. There is no reason why they should not go out and try to grab a Stephon Gilmore or grab an Asante Samuel Jr. When these are your 3 starting corners, you signed up for what you brought to the table. And if you have these 3 guys starting at corner for you, you are going to have issues. You just are. I like what Storm Duck can bring to the table. I think Mike Hilton's a fine Cater Kohu replacement in the slot. But we have been screaming from the rooftops for the last 4 or 5 months that this secondary needs improvement. Ever since they released Kendall Fuller, it's just been players dropping like flies. Ramsey gone, Kohu injured. They obviously let Jordan Poyer and Javon Holland walk, which I'm not complaining about. I think the safety room's fine. But the cornerbacks is where I'm the most concerned. Even if Jalen Ramsey was in this unit, I still think it wouldn't be that good because we don't have a CB2 even if you add Ramsey. Without Ramsey, you don't even have a CB1. It's a serious issue. I don't know how Miami fixes it, and I don't think they'll be able to. Number 3, Zach Wilson might suck. Just might. I'm sorry. I was a little bit happy when the Dolphins signed him in free agency because I thought he's fun. He's talented, and I was a Zach Wilson guy when he was coming out of BYU. I'll be honest. I thought he was going to be really good. I thought the intangibles were just too much to pass up on. I knew there was reservations sometimes about his frame, about his processing, but the talent I thought was going to win. And it hasn't to this point in his career, and it doesn't feel like that's going to change. Zach Wilson, after having a very up and down preseason game against the Bears, threw multiple interceptions on 7-7s, was really shaky in 11-on-11. The only positive that he had is that he did put together a nice red zone kind of stretch for Miami where he found a couple wide receivers for Miami in the end zone for touchdowns. Tanner Connor caught one from him. Eric Ezukama caught one from him. So Wilson was solid in the red zone, but in full length, 11-on-11 and 2-minute drill, it wasn't pretty. And I'm starting to get a little bit nervous. Like, we might be in a situation where Miami is clamoring and begging for Tua to stay healthy for 17 games because if he misses time, it might be as ugly with the backup quarterback situation as it was with Skylar Thompson, Tim Boyle, and Tyler Huntley last year. Now, with all of this being said, I still do believe the backup quarterback tandem that Zach Wilson and Quinn Ewers are, I would rather have those two over the trio that we trotted out there last year with Thompson, Boyle, and Huntley. Those 3 were tough to watch. I think these 2 would be better, but it might just be by this much rather than about this much. But let me know your thoughts. Is the Dolphins QB situation better this year than it was last year? Type Y for yes or type N for no. We'll end the show on a little bit of a positive note here after 3 negative ones. Dolphins run game, I think, is going to be solid this year. And Devon Achan looks like an absolute stud. We watched him run for 1 possession against the Bears last week. He had 3 carries for 22 yards. Looked like he was explosive, patient, and when he cut up field, it was a pretty watch. And it sounded like he had a really good practice today. All reports is that in the passing game, not one linebacker could stay in front of Devon Achan when they try to guard him. That shouldn't surprise anyone. Achan's an excellent pass catcher and a route runner. And he also picked up some big games on halfback sweeps and halfback tosses. And we shat on the offensive line a little bit earlier in this video, but I feel like the clear strength of this group is run blocking. Patrick Paul is a mauler in the run game. So is Jonah Savianaya. James Daniels specializes in the run game. And Aaron Brewer is such an athlete at the center position. He's able to just get to that second level so easily as your starting center. So if you are looking at this team, and maybe it's hard to judge since we haven't had Tyreek Hill or Jaylen Waddle in these joint practices, but they've struggled throwing the football against the Bears and Lions. So maybe we will just have to become a run-first football team. Maybe that will work out in our favor. We do have a solid running back trio. We have a solid run-blocking O-line. But it feels like we might have to head that way early in camp. I hate to overreact. I try not to. But this is where I'm at this point in the preseason and training camp. And if you want more updates on the Dolphins, whether it's injury news, like I said, we had you covered on the Chop Robinson situation earlier on my Twitter before this video. I also had some takeaways from joint practice on my Twitter before this video. So if you want up-to-date coverage on Miami, yeah, you need to be subscribed, but you also need to go follow me at Nic_Rohloff.